Hi, I'm Adam West, designer of Empire of the Stars. I hope you'll support me on Kickstarter. Thank you very much. This is Empire of the Stars. In Empire, you're a planetary ruler vying for control of the galaxy. The game is for 2 to 4 players, takes about 90 to 120 minutes. The game ends when one player completes their expansion of their empire by placing all of their colonies in the galaxy. You score for the size of your empire and for points you've gained in your throne. Each player has a specific player power, and there are 30 different player powers in Empire, and each one gives you a special ability. As the game unfolds, your power will surge, making it a superpower. It's really fun to play a power that fits your playstyle. So how does the game work? Well, during play, you'll choose one of 7 roles here. Each role gives you a special privilege, but everyone gets to take a turn with the role. And the roles are Explorer, where you add planets, asteroid fields, and wormholes to the galaxy. There's Steward, where you produce resources from your colonized planets. There is Merchant, where you can buy and sell resources and invest in far space. And there's Engineer, where you can build and deploy your fleet of fighters, cruisers, and dreadnoughts. Scientist is where you can research and discover new technologies. Empire has 75 unique technologies in the game, covering science and culture, industry, and of course, military. In the middle here is Warlord, where you move your fleets around the galaxy and engage in epic battles. And finally, there's Regent. And that's where you use your influence on planets to create star bases and, if possible, become emperor. So to begin the first round, the starting player places the star cube on any role they want. Let's say they put it on Explorer, for example. Each round after, the player with the scepter, and this is not the real scepter in the game, these are all prototype components, but you get the idea here. Each round, when you get the scepter, you must move the star cube to another role. And for each role passed over, you must drop 1 credit on it. So for example, if I was moving from Explorer here to Merchant, I would have to drop a couple credits to get over to Merchant. And that's how that works. If there are credits on the roll you end on, say there were 2 credits here, after I moved, I would get to take these credits into my bank. So that's how that works in the game. When all the players have taken a turn with a roll, the scepter passes to the next player, and then they choose a different role in the same way. So in Empire, your board begins with stacks of your colony tokens. For example, for blue there, we've got a stack, yellow's got a stack, green's got a stack. And that's how the game begins. When removed from your player board and placed into the galaxy, a colony represents your expanding empire. So for example, if I get a token out here, you see I've taken one off the board, and I get another one out here. I get to put one in Starbase, in far space, for example. And you can see my tokens are coming off my board into the galaxy, and those represent my expanding empire in the game. So that's how that works. Take these back for a second here. You can also secretly score tokens in your throne. Every player has their own throne, and so during the game you'll also be taking tokens and pushing them into the back of your throne to score them. And they're secretly stored there and revealed at the end of the game. You can do that by using your player power or various technologies, expanding into far space as I described. You can put these into your throne, for example, or by defeating opponents in battle. There are many ways to victory in Empire. When a player scores their last token on their board, the game ends and you count up your tokens in the galaxy and also in your throne, and the highest points wins at that point. Let's go through all the roles in some detail now. I'll show you how they work. So for Explorer, what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of the available tiles over here and place it anywhere in the galaxy. Let's say I get this particular tile, I can put it anywhere I want in the galaxy, way over here. And if I chose Explorer, the benefit is I can actually go colonize it right away. And then the next player gets to pick a tile. So say blue gets to go, they might pick this one and put it here. And then the last player gets the final 2 tiles. They can put them like this. I'm putting down an asteroid field, and that's actually like a speed bump in the galaxy. When you take a ship into an asteroid field, it can't move any further until the next turn when it's able to do so. So it has to stop there every time. So it's a way to hinder your opponents. And there's different tiles like that in the game that can do that. But that's how Explorer works. Then, of course, we refill the display when we're done. Pretty simple, really, right? Okay, and then we've got Steward here. So let's move over here to Steward. Of course, we have to drop tokens if we actually move it there. You choose which resources will be produced by all players. And then everyone produces those resources. So I could go up here and choose polymers and energy. And I will flip that over and put it here. And then everybody produces on the planets that they occupy all of their polymer and energy, for example. And notice also that the prices of resources has gone down a little bit. Every time Steward is chosen by players, another tile would be flipped over, another one. And notice how the prices are going down as that happens. That's how Steward works. So let's talk about Merchant, which is kind of the other side of Steward. Merchant, you gain credits depending on the market table, which I was just showing you up here. Then everyone can buy and sell resources for the current value. Again, there's our current exchange rate up there. And again, that's based on how many times players have chosen Steward before Merchant is chosen. That's how that works. So that's pretty cool too. After everyone has bought and sold, you can invest in Far Space. Around the edge of the board here, there's 8 different locations representing distant galaxies where you're actually sending some money and influence that direction to secure points and really expand your empire even further. The costs are pretty low down here and pretty high up there. You can invest twice in Far Space on your turn of Merchant. So I could spend 5 credits here and again score that secretly over here. I could spend another 5, put my colony out there. On later turns, another Merchant comes up. I could spend again and flip it over to a star base, which is essentially worth more points. So you're expanding your influence out here, really with your economy in the game. So that's how that works. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And then another role, of course, is Scientist, and this is where you get to buy some technologies. You can discover a new technology. There are 75 unique technologies in Empire covering science and culture, industry, and military technology. You begin with 3 basic technologies, each worth 1 resource apiece. They're kind of low level and weaker technologies, but as the game progresses, you can get more and more advanced technologies in the game. You can draw a new one by looking at the discards and the draw pile. The discards, of course, are showing you face-up technologies, while the draw pile is only showing you the cost and type of technology. Energy technologies are military. Red metal technologies there are industry. And the polymer ones are the culture and science technologies. So you can draw a new one by looking at the discards and the draw pile, and you hold them in your hand until you're ready to research them. For every tech you've already discovered, you get a discount on new techs of the same type. And techs are a way to improve your empire, make you more powerful, and of course, you can also use them to score points in the game. So for engineer, over here, you build your fleets of fighters, cruisers, and dreadnoughts. Everybody has their ships off to the side here, and you spend resources to build your fighters and your cruisers, and then the horrible dreadnoughts that you have. Everybody can build those by spending resources, and then you deploy them to your star bases. That's how ships get into the game. So that's what engineer does. But you might ask, well, how do I get star bases? Well, you do start the game, everybody does, with a star base on their home planet. So you'll be able to deploy ships there. But also, this brings us to Regent, the next role I want to talk about. So Regent lets you spread your political influence over the galaxy. And it's how you turn colonies into star bases. Not only are star bases where you deploy your ships, but they're also worth extra points in the game. It's not as easy as you might think, though. Let's see how Regent works exactly. So to begin, everybody starts with 2 influence. So you take 2 of your tokens as colony tokens, really, but they're influenced during Regent. You set them out here. So everybody starts that way. No matter where you're at, in your economy or in your expansion of your empire, everybody gets 2 influence. But you can also buy 1 more influence for 2 credits. So I could buy another one. That would cost me 2 credits to do that. And I would have a 3rd one. But when I buy influence, the next person to buy, their cost goes up by 1 credit. So if I bought one for 2, blue would have to spend 3 credits to buy their extra influence. And then if they bought one, green would have to spend 4 to buy their extra influence. So money is used to buy political influence. I mean, just like in real life. You can take your influence and place it anywhere in the galaxy, even on your own colonies. You can place it on an empty planet to colonize it. If you place it on your own colony, however, for example, if I put it out here, 2 influence makes a star base. That's how you get star bases in the game. You can put it on an opponent's star base. Let's say that blue was out here with a star base, and I can put influence there, and now that would knock his star base down into a colony. If I put another influence there, it would wipe him out. If I put another influence there, I would actually take over that planet. And that's how political influence works in this game. It's another way to expand your empire, of course. And of course, you can even put it on the galactic throne down here, represented on this part of the board. So I can put influence there and try to take over the throne. Of course, your opponents can do the exact same thing, and that's where political conflict happens. You remove influence equally until only 1 remains. Your political reach is mighty indeed. It can go all over the galaxy. But if you do take the throne with influence and become emperor, you can set the edict. And there's different edicts available to you in the game. The edict determines how scoring happens each time you receive the scepter. So when the scepter goes around the table and comes back to you, if you set the edict, you were emperor, you would score a special way. For example, plutocracy says, first off, all players score a Kali token. That has an interesting effect in the game because it means tokens are going in everybody's throne and being drained from their player board. So that's how the game keeps its pace. That's how the game gets finished in 90 to 120 minutes, even for 4 players. Because once an edict is set, the game just starts ticking down. Every time it goes around the table, it ticks down further. But plutocracy says the player with the most credits scores a galaxy token. And so in this case, that wouldn't have been good for me because I don't have the most. But blue, in that case, would have scored a galaxy token because they had the most credits. The edict stays in place until Regent is chosen again. So you could be vying for that scoring opportunity during play. But when Regent comes up again, someone else could take the throne. They could reset the edict to something that benefits them, like most planets, most technologies, most ships deployed, even something like I have the most far space locations in a netocracy, for example. So that's how the game continues to trundle ahead here. So pretty cool. And then, of course, the game ticks down to a climactic end through that. Well, let's talk lastly about Warlord here, which is really part of the heart of the game. In Empire, battles happen in systems. You might notice on the board here there's colors to represent those, but every circle is a region, and 4 regions make up a system in the game. You can see those pockets of systems around the game board here. You add up your combat strength of your forces in the entire system. So, for example, if I had my Dreadnought here and a fighter over here, this system would include the fighter, my starbase, the Dreadnought, and this fighter over here would all be part of the battle in that system. And I would add up all those units and use them to attack my opponent. But I can also call for allies. So in Empire of the Stars, everybody is constantly involved, right? And someone could fly their ships into the system when I call for them to do so and add their ships to my combat strength. Your opponent can do the same thing. So everyone can be involved in every battle. After secretly allocating your combat strength on your dial here between tactics, weapons, and shields, so for example, if I had 7 combat strength with myself and my allies, I could spend that on tactics, weapons, and shields. I could put my shields to, 3. I could put my weapons to 1, and I could spend the rest, put 3 in tactics, for example. We would secretly do that and then reveal it and compare our combat strategy, our battle plan, to each other. So If you win in tactics, if I put more tactics in there than my opponent did, I can move ships around in the system. I can move my own ships around in the system. I can move them out of the system. I can move my opponent's units around the system or out of the system. You might ask, why do you do that? Well, for a defender, I can fly out of the way and not suffer damage if I see, or if I suspect, because you did this secretly, if I suspect they're going to come in hot with their weapons and I really don't have enough shields to deflect it, I can pour my combat strategy into tactics and try to get out of the way. Or conversely, they can try to come in with tactics, which would of course keep me in the system, but also they might move my ships off of different units, off of colonies to kind of expose them easier for their weapons to go in and destroy those colonies or star bases. So that's how the game is kind of fun. You're doing it secretly, you're trying to think, well, they're going to do that, and then I might do this, but then they might do that, and that's the way the game unfolds. It's actually quite delightful to play the game that way. So, tactics can be used to move your opponent's ships to weaken their defenses, or move your own ships to ready them for a battle, even in the next system. So I could with tactics, fly my dreadnought over here, and then conduct a battle over here next. So my dreadnought actually contributes to 2 different systems in that way. Also very cool way you could chain attacks together across systems. It's really exciting when you play it. So after we resolve tactics, we compare weapons and shields. You compare your weapons to your opponent's shields. They compare their weapons to your shields. Again, looking at our combat dials here. That's how we would do it. We would look and compare to each other here. And for every hit, you decide which opponent's ships or colonies are destroyed. So if I get my weapons through their shields, I get to decide what is hit by that. You could decide to hit their colony, and if you destroy an opponent's colony, it's actually scored into your throne. So for example, if blue was over here, and say we were fighting over in this system for a second, and my dreadnought there, and I destroyed this with my weapons, I actually score that in my throne. Not only that, but because I'm the only ship on the planet when combat is over, I get to colonize that. So I've actually scored twice there, once in my throne and once, of course, expanding my empire. And again, that's why the game moves along so quickly. Of course, it takes a lot of hits to destroy a dreadnought. They're very tough. Cruisers are slightly less tough, and fighters, well, they're kind of your meat shields. They get destroyed pretty quickly, but they're also very cheap. Interestingly, in Empire of the Stars, when a ship is destroyed, it doesn't go back in your supply. It goes back to your staging area. And so you don't have to buy it again. When Engineer comes up, you could just simply redeploy it again right out there. So that keeps combat going very quickly. You get set back a little bit because you've lost traction with your ships, but you can put them right back out again. The only limit here is they have to be deployed to star bases. So you have to make sure you have enough star bases in the game to deploy your fleet. If you've been losing star bases and you cannot deploy your ships during Engineer, then they in fact do go back into your supply and you'll have to rebuy them again. So you can get hammered down that way. But if you wipe your opponents off of a planet, you can place your colony token there, and of course you get to score the colony you destroyed in your throne. So the game continues this way, with the scepter being passed to the next player. They move the star cube, everybody does that roll, it passes to the next player, star cube moves again, everybody does that roll, and the game continues this way, on and on, players deciding which role benefits them the most, using their power to wreak havoc on the galaxy and expand their influence, and of course, their empire of the stars. So that's the game. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. If you have any questions, just post a comment on Kickstarter and I'll reply as soon as I can. Thanks.